What if life, in the blink of an eye, took away everything you thought was certain? Catherine grew up surrounded by luxury, but one reckless decision made her wake up in a completely strange place, where no one knew her name, not even herself. There, with no memories and no wealth, she discovered love and a completely new and different life. But the past always finds a way back. And when she was finally found, Catherine had to make a choice. Return to the life she once had, or pretend total amnesia so she wouldn't lose her one true love.
If you had everything money could buy, but discovered the people around you were only there out of interest, what would you do? Leave your answer in the comments. Would you rather continue living a life of luxury, even surrounded by falsehood, or give it all up to live simply, but surrounded by true love?
The hall was filled with sparkling lights, crystal glasses clinking, loud laughter, and vibrant music. But for John, it all felt distant. Sitting among friends who flaunted expensive clothes and shallow conversations, he felt like a stranger. The brilliance around him did nothing to fill the silence inside. Since childhood, John had been taught that his life was already defined. The only son of a wealthy and influential family, he would inherit businesses, properties, and the weight of a traditional surname. Anything he wanted was just a gesture away. Anything, except what truly mattered, meaning. That night, during yet another family dinner, the discussion revolved around new investments. His father, with a firm gaze and commanding voice, spoke enthusiastically about international expansion. His mother, elegant and pragmatic, agreed. But John could no longer remain silent. "Father, mother, this isn't what I want." His voice came out firm, but heavy with anguish. "I need to find something that makes sense to me. All this luxury, it isn't enough." The silence that followed was heavy. His father let out a deep sigh. His mother looked away. "You speak as if you had nothing," his father replied, disappointed. "But if you insist on this foolishness, do as you wish. Just don't expect support to throw away the family legacy." That night, John decided. He would leave behind mansions, imported cars, parties, and titles. He took only a small part of the inheritance, just enough to avoid want. He set out in search of a different life, even without knowing exactly what he would find. Months later, after crossing cities, countries, and forgotten roads, he arrived at a small village hidden among the mountains. Simple houses, dirt roads, children running free, people greeting each other by name. Their time moved differently. The silence wasn't empty. It was peace. John rented a small room at an inn, began working manual jobs, and lived like anyone else. For the first time, he learned the value of earning with his own effort, of cooking his own meal, of feeling proud of something simple. At night, sitting by the stream that cut through the village, he looked at the starry sky and wondered, "Am I finally on the right path?" He didn't know it yet, but destiny was about to answer. And his life, once marked by excess and loneliness, was soon to be touched by something far greater than wealth: love. Mornings in the village began with the sound of the small church bells and the smell of fresh bread drifting from the artisan bakeries. Little by little, John grew accustomed to that new rhythm of life. He no longer wore expensive suits or frequented luxurious halls. His clothes were simple, his hands already showed the marks of daily work, but for the first time he felt alive. One day, as he crossed the main square, he heard cheerful voices coming from a small school. Children ran across the wooden courtyard, and at the center of them was a woman with a radiant smile, her hair tied in a simple bun, and her eyes full of kindness. It was Marie. She taught with patience and enthusiasm, kneeling down to speak at the children's level, turning each lesson into a moment of joy. John stood still for a moment, watching, as if the world had slowed down. Later, as he passed in front of the school, Marie greeted him naturally. "You're new around here, aren't you? I hadn't seen you in the village before." I arrived a few weeks ago. I'm trying to learn what it's like to live this way, John replied, a little shy. Well, you already seem pretty well adapted. Around here, the most important thing is to be grateful for the little we have. That phrase echoed in his mind. Grateful for the little. Something so far from his old life, yet so true. As the months passed, John and Marie began to see each other more often. He helped her carry baskets of books, fix small things at the school, and accompanied her on walks along the stream. She, in turn, showed him the hidden corners of the village. The flower field that changed colors with each season, the hill where the sunset seemed to set the horizon on fire, the weekly market where everyone gathered not just to buy, but to share stories. With every glance, every gesture, something grew between them. It wasn't a consuming passion, but a quiet feeling that blossomed like wildflowers in spring. One afternoon, as they walked, Marie remarked, "You're different, John. You always seem so grateful for everything, even the simplest things." He smiled, without the courage to reveal his true past. "Maybe because I know what it's like to have plenty and still feel empty. Here, I found something I never had." Time passed. Seasons changed. Summers gave way to harsh winters. Their bond became unbreakable. Their love grew not amidst luxury, but around the sharing of bread, conversations under the stars, and silences that spoke louder than words. Until one day, in front of the small church, surrounded by friends and neighbors, John and Marie were married in a simple yet meaningful ceremony. There was no material wealth, but there was abundance in what truly mattered: love, faith, and community. That night, as he looked into Marie's eyes, John knew with certainty that he had finally found meaning in his life. But life, always unpredictable, still held a painful blow in store. Time seemed to flow at a different pace in the village. Months turned into years, and the simple life became the foundation of Johan and Marie's happiness. Each season brought new moments. Picking flowers in the spring, walking through the snow in the winter, sharing stories around the fireplace on autumn nights. Johan no longer had to pretend. For the first time, he was himself. Marie, with her sweetness, had filled the emptiness that had haunted him since youth. But life, capricious as it is, rarely follows only the path of peace. Soon after the wedding, news arrived like a storm. Johan's parents had died in a car accident. The world he had left behind was pulling him back, forcing him to face his true identity. Marie noticed the anguish in her husband's eyes when he finally told her the truth. "Marie, I've hidden a part of myself. I'm not just the simple man you met here. My family owned large businesses. I ran away from that world because I couldn't stand the emptiness it brought." She held his hands tenderly. "Johan, it doesn't matter who you were. What matters is who you chose to become here." Even so, Johan knew he had to return to the mansion to settle everything. And Marie, with her generous heart, went with him. In the city, surrounded by the luxury that had once suffocated Johan, Marie didn't change. She remained the same woman with kind eyes and humble gestures. And soon, the most awaited news came. She was pregnant. Months of anticipation followed, filled with plans, dreams, and laughter as they prepared the baby's room. Johan seemed to live in a constant miracle. "I've always dreamed of having a daughter," he would say, caressing Marie's belly. But on that stormy night, their plans fell apart. Marie went into labor with complications. The sound of the storm mixed with her cries of pain, and Johan's heart shattered with every passing second. At the hospital, the doctors were clear. "Sir, we need your authorization for an emergency cesarean. The risk is high." Johan's hands trembled as he signed the papers. He tried to appear strong, but his voice broke with every whispered prayer in the hallway. "Please, save them both. You can't lose her." Hours later, the cry of a baby echoed. A nurse brought a little girl wrapped in white blankets. "It's a beautiful baby girl, sir. But, I'm sorry, your wife didn't make it." Johan's world collapsed. He held his daughter in his arms, tears streaming uncontrollably. "Marie," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I promise I will take care of her. Catherine will grow up knowing how much you loved her." Back at the mansion, Johan felt surrounded by walls that brought no comfort. Luxury was now only a cruel reminder of absence. In his arms, little Catherine slept peacefully, unaware of the promise that would guide her father's future. The first months after Marie's passing were the darkest of Johan's life. He tried to be strong for Catherine, but the pain was far too deep to hide. It was then that Emma, Marie's mother, arrived at the mansion bringing with her something no luxury could ever buy: wisdom and affection. With her presence, the house regained a sense of warmth. Emma took on the mission of helping to raise her granddaughter, filling with love the void her daughter had left behind. Catherine needs to feel that even without her mother, she is still surrounded by love, she would tell Johan as she cradled the little girl in her arms. Years went by, and Catherine grew under her grandmother's direct influence. Emma taught her to observe nature, to smell the wet earth, to value a simple sunrise. "Look, Katie," she would say, pointing to the garden, "every flower has its time to bloom. Life is the same way." In the backyard, she taught her to plant herbs and prepare medicinal teas. In the kitchen, she showed her how to bake simple cakes, which always ended with laughter and flowers scattered across the girl's apron. They were small moments, but they shaped Catherine's heart. During her childhood, Katie saw Emma as her greatest role model. Memories of wrinkled hands holding hers, stories told by the fireplace, and old songs sung before bedtime. And even amidst the mansion's luxury, it was in the garden with her grandmother that she felt truly happy. But time, relentless as always, did not stop. Emma's health began to decline slowly. First came the weakness, then the days when she remained in bed, too frail to tend to the garden. Catherine, still young, could not understand what was happening, until one silent, cold morning arrived. Emma passed away peacefully, leaving behind an immense emptiness not only in the mansion but also in her granddaughter's heart. Catherine cried as she had never cried before. Johan, trying to hide his own pain, held his daughter close. "I know, Katie. I miss her too." But without Emma, Catherine's life took a different course. Still a child, she slowly began to drift away from the values her grandmother had instilled in her. Surrounded by servants, expensive clothes, and luxurious trips, she grew accustomed to comfort. As the years went by, Catherine changed. The sweetness of her childhood still existed, but it was hidden beneath the superficial glitter of wealth. And Johan, increasingly consumed by work as a way to deal with his own grief, didn't notice how much his daughter was drifting away from him. The years rushed by like the wind. Catherine, now a teenager, was the reflection of the world in which she had grown up. Surrounded by everything money could buy, yet carrying an emptiness hard to hide. Imported shoes, luxurious dresses, trips to exotic places. None of it filled the absence of affection. The time she had spent with Emma seemed more distant with each day, almost like a blurred memory of a dream. The garden that once symbolized love was now just another part of the mansion's decoration. Johan, meanwhile, was always absent. Buried in commitments, meetings, and responsibilities, he believed that providing material comfort was enough to make up for his absence. But deep down, he also carried the guilt of not being the present father he had promised Marie he would be. One night, during dinner, Catherine exploded. "Dad, you're never here." Her words came out filled with hurt. "I don't need more clothes or trips. I just wanted you." Johan was silent for a few seconds, stunned. In his daughter's eyes, he saw the same pain he had known since youth, the emptiness that nothing seemed to fill. "Katie," he tried to say, but his voice failed. That night, he reflected on everything. Perhaps there was still time to repair the bond that seemed lost. He decided they needed something to bring them closer again. A few days later, he called Catherine to talk. "I've been thinking about us," about how we've been living. I think we need some time together, away from all this. I chose a hotel in the mountains, isolated. Just you and me, no distractions. Catherine reluctantly agreed. Part of her wanted to believe her father was truly trying. The morning after they arrived, they had breakfast together in the hotel dining room. They talked about trivial things, but soon the conversation ran dry. Silence became uncomfortable, until they decided to step out onto the balcony to watch the snow falling over the landscape. Johan, restless, kept remembering the work commitments he had left behind. Catherine, meanwhile, grew bored of the bucolic setting, which to her felt lifeless. Perhaps this wasn't the right place for reconnection. Dad, why don't we go down to the village? There must be shops, something to buy, anything to do, Catherine suggested, perking up at the thought. Johan smiled, trying to give in. All right, we can go for a walk. They were about to leave when his phone rang. The number was unmistakable. An urgent call from the office. He hesitated, but answered. Katie, forgive me. It's important. Just wait a little, please. Catherine sighed, disappointed. Work first again, she thought. While Johan stepped away to take the call, she glanced discreetly at the reception desk, where the car keys were left after they had dismissed the driver. An impulsive idea took hold of her. I know how to drive. It can't be that hard to get to the village. He won't even notice. With her heart racing, she grabbed the keys without her father noticing and quickly left the hotel. The engine roared in the covered garage, and within moments, she was on the winding road. But it didn't take long before the sky darkened with heavy clouds and a sudden snowstorm fell. Visibility dropped drastically, and every curve became a challenge. Catherine gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to stay calm, but her inexperience soon took over. Instead of heading toward the village, she unknowingly took the opposite route. The path carried her farther and farther away, leading her toward a destiny that would change her life forever. The snow was falling heavily, turning the road into a treacherous white blanket. Catherine gripped the steering wheel, her heart racing. The windshield wipers barely managed to clear a path through the storm. The cold inside the car seemed to pierce through her, but what scared her most was the feeling of being lost. With every curve, the road grew narrower, more dangerous. Without realizing it, she had left the main route that led to the tourist village and was now following an almost abandoned path. Damn! She muttered, trying to see through the fog. Her phone, left on the hotel room table, blinked with notifications she would never see. Acting impulsively, she had left with only the car keys, not thinking that without the device she would be completely cut off. The snow covered everything, erasing signs and landmarks. Panic grew. Why didn't I wait? She whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. Suddenly, a sharp curve appeared before her. Catherine slammed on the brakes, but the tires slid over the ice. The car spun, skidding out of control until it plunged off the road. The impact was harsh, a crash that echoed among the trees. Everything went silent. Hours later, as the storm began to subside, Jack was walking through the forest gathering firewood. He was a young man with a calm gaze, accustomed to the simple life in the small community of Pine Hollow, an isolated village, almost forgotten by maps. Few outsiders ever arrived there. The residents lived without technology, growing their own food, raising animals, and bartering goods among themselves. It was a world apart, sustained by solidarity and collective work. Noticing strange tracks in the snow, Jack followed them until he found the wrecked car in a ditch. His heart raced. He ran to the door, forcing it open until he managed to pry it free. Inside was Catherine, unconscious, her pale face marked by the shock. My God, he murmured, before lifting her into his arms. He carried her carefully along the trail to his home, where his mother, Emma, gasped at the sight of him entering. Jack, who is this girl? I don't know. I found the car crashed on the road. She needs help. Emma didn't ask further questions. She prepared hot water, blankets, and compresses while Jack laid Catherine on the wooden sofa by the fireplace. A few hours later, the young woman slowly opened her eyes. The warmth of the fire contrasted with the chill that still clung to her body. She tried to speak, but her mind was clouded. "Where am I?" Jack stepped closer, speaking gently. "You're in Pine Hollow. I'm Jack, and this is my mother, Emma. We found you on the road." Catherine brought a hand to her head, trying to retrieve some memory. But the emptiness was stronger than the pain. She didn't know who she was, where she had come from, or where she was going. In that moment, without realizing it, her life had just begun again. The first days in Pine Hollow were a blur for Catherine. She woke up disoriented, unable to recognize her own reflection in the improvised mirror Emma placed beside the bed. The memories simply didn't come. She didn't know her name, her origin, nothing beyond the feeling of emptiness. Emma and Jack, however, never asked questions. They cared for her with patience and affection, as if she had been part of the family all along. "What matters now is that you are safe," Emma would say, serving her a hot soup made with vegetables from the backyard. Little by little, Catherine began to learn the routine of that isolated community. Pine Hollow was not an ordinary village. Hidden among mountains and surrounded by forests, it was almost invisible to the modern world. There was no cell signal, nor constant electricity. Everything was produced there: bread, clothes, homemade remedies, tools. Each family contributed with what they knew how to do, and everyone lived in cooperation. At first, Catherine found it strange. She had once been used to luxuries, but her blocked memory did not allow her to compare. To her, it was simply a new world, filled with simple challenges. Lighting a fire, carrying buckets of water, learning to grow herbs in Emma's small garden. Jack accompanied her in every task. He showed her how to plow the land, chop firewood, and fish in the stream. He never complained, even when Catherine made mistakes or got clumsy. He just smiled and repeated, "You learn fast. Soon you'll find all this easy." And, to her own surprise, she really began to enjoy it. The smell of wood burning in the fireplace, the sound of the river flowing, the warmth of freshly baked bread. Small details brought her a peace she had never felt before. Weeks turned into months. Catherine began helping at the village's weekly markets, where residents traded goods: cheese for wool, honey for potatoes, stories for smiles. For the first time, she felt part of something bigger than herself. One starry night, as they walked through the woods, Jack looked at her tenderly. "You have something special, Snow Girl. It doesn't matter who you were. What matters is who you are becoming here." Catherine smiled, unable to explain the emotion that filled her chest. Jack's words seemed to touch a deep place within her, as if they awakened something long asleep. The feeling between the two grew in silence, like a discreet but steady flame. There were no promises, only gestures. A lingering glance, a shared laugh, a quick touch of hands while working in the fields. But as she found peace in that new life, something unexpected began to happen. Small fragments of memory surfaced at random moments. The smell of flowers in a large garden, the distant laugh of a woman, the vague memory of a man with a firm voice calling her name. One afternoon in Emma's garden, the scent of flowers brought back a hazy scene. Herself as a child, laughing beside someone who seemed to be a loving grandmother. Catherine placed her hand over her heart, confused. "I think I'm starting to remember something. There was a garden, and someone I loved very much was with me." Emma, with the wisdom of someone who had seen life change many times, simply replied, "Those memories are seeds, dear. One day they will bloom completely." Catherine didn't know it yet, but destiny was already preparing the reunion with the past she had forgotten. As Catherine adapted to life in Pine Hollow, months had already passed since the accident. She felt no urgency to remember what she had lost. The simplicity of daily life with Jack and Emma gave her a peace that seemed enough. But somewhere else, A father's heart beat in despair. Jihan never gave up searching for his daughter. Right after her disappearance, he hired rescue teams, distributed flyers, and brought in private investigators. They searched roads, hotels, nearby towns. Each lead turned into a brief hope, followed by crushing disappointment. No matter how long it takes, I will find you, Katie, he repeated to himself every lonely night. Time went on and the pain grew heavier, until, months later, an unexpected piece of information rekindled his hope. A villager from a nearby community mentioned having seen a young man carrying an unconscious girl during the storm. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Without hesitation, Jihan set out for the mountainous region. The narrow road led him to Pine Hollow, a community he hadn't even known existed. As he entered the small square, the sound of children's laughter caught his attention. And there, among the improvised market stalls, his heart stopped for a moment. Catherine was there, laughing, helping Jack organize goods at a stand. The sparkle in her eyes was something Jihan hadn't seen since her childhood. "Katie!" he shouted, his voice breaking. Catherine turned, confused. As she saw the man running toward her, flashes of memory burst through her mind. A blooming garden, a tight embrace, his voice calling her name when she was a little girl. "Dad?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Jihan pulled her into his arms, holding her as if afraid she might vanish again. "My Katie, I never stopped looking for you. Are you all right? I was so worried." Catherine wept silently, resting her head on his shoulder. It was as if two worlds collided inside her. The luxurious, painful past and the simple, serene present she had learned to love. Jack and Emma watched from a distance. The reunion moved them, but it also brought the certainty that Catherine's life was about to change once again. In the following days, Jihan stayed in the village. He tried to understand his daughter's routine, got to know Jack and Emma, listened to stories from the community. But he also noticed something that hurt him. Catherine was no longer the same, and he understood it deeply because memories of his own youth, and the village where he had met and lived with Marie, kept surfacing and tightening his chest. Memories he had spent years trying to escape. One afternoon by the stream, she spoke firmly. "Dad, I'm not that girl anymore, the one surrounded by expensive things. Here, I've discovered things I never imagined. I want to carry this with me, no matter what happens." Jihan took a deep breath, his eyes filled with emotion. "Katie, I just want you to be happy. If this life is what makes you smile, then I'll stand by your side." But Catherine knew there was still an unfinished thread in her heart. She needed to return to the mansion, revisit memories, and face the past in order to finally choose her future. The return to the city was silent. The family mansion rose like a monument to modernity and luxury. Automatic gates, hallways lit by sensors, designer furniture, works of art on the walls, discreet staff in every corner. High ceilings and glass windows revealed a cold sophistication, far removed from the simplicity Catherine had learned to love in Pine Hollow. For Jack, it was suffocating. The excess of technology and comfort seemed to drain the life out of the place. But he stayed quiet, watching Catherine's reaction. On the first night, she walked through the mansion's garden. The fragrance of the flowers carried her back to childhood, when she spent entire afternoons with her grandmother, learning to care for the earth. She remembered Emma smiling, teaching her that every plant had its own time to bloom. Those simple, profound memories were what truly gave her the strength to move forward. With tears in her eyes, she told Jack, "This place reminds me of who I was, but it also shows me who I don't want to be anymore. I need to change all of this." In the days that followed, Catherine and Jihan had long conversations. She shared with her father what she had learned in Pine Hollow, the importance of simplicity, community work, and living in harmony with nature. And she decided she no longer wanted to be bound to a legacy that had never made sense to her. "Dad, I want to turn this inheritance into something that truly helps people, she said firmly. I don't want all of this to keep existing just to feed an emptiness. Jan listened in silence, deeply moved. Then he smiled, recognizing something familiar. You speak with the same conviction I had when I told my parents I wanted another life, Katie. A simple life, different from what they had dreamed for me. You are just like me. The decision was made. They would sell most of the family properties to fund social projects. Catherine enrolled in medical school, determined to dedicate her life to caring for underprivileged communities. Jack, in turn, dreamed of creating education and sustainability initiatives, inspired by the way of life in Pine Hollow. We can unite both worlds, Jack, Catherine said, holding his hand. I don't want to abandon the city, but I also don't want to forget everything I learned in the village. We can bring Pine Hollow's values to more people. He smiled, squeezing her fingers tenderly. If that's your dream, I'll be with you every step of the way. Day by day, the two grew stronger as a couple, united not only by love but by a greater purpose. Catherine's life, once marked by emptiness and loss, was now filled with hope and determination. But destiny still held one last surprise. Time passed. Months turned into years, and the family's transformation became visible. The mansion, which once held memories of both joy and pain, was completely redefined, transformed into a training center for volunteer doctors. Other properties were sold to finance social projects that brought hope to different communities. Catherine graduated in medicine and dedicated her life to helping those in need. Jack, in turn, led education and sustainability initiatives, always with the same passion and simplicity he had learned in Pine Hollow. Their love blossomed even more. They were married in an intimate ceremony by the stream in the village, surrounded only by nature, with Jan and Emma present. At the moment the young couple exchanged rings, Jan and Emma's eyes met. And in that instant, both realized it wasn't only Catherine's life that had changed. Theirs was about to begin anew as well. With time, the bond between Jan and Emma turned into love. A mature love, built on respect, friendship, and the understanding of those who had lost much but still believed in new beginnings. One day, during a picnic in the flower-filled fields near the village, the whole family gathered. Catherine and Jack held Zoe and Henry, their twin children, while Jan and Emma chatted happily in the background. The sun lit up the scene, and the gentle breeze made the flowers sway as if they were celebrating that new life. Catherine looked at her father, smiling. I finally understand now, Dad. True wealth lies in the connections we build, not in the things we own. Jan, moved, held Emma's hand and replied, and I finally understand that being with you is all that truly matters. The children's laughter echoed through the fields, mingling with the voices of the family. It was the sound of hope, of continuity, of life moving forward. In that moment, everyone understood that the painful past had been transformed into a present filled with love, and into a future full of possibilities. It was, at last, the balance they had all been searching for. What did you think of this story? Share your opinion in the comments and tell us. What score would you give from 0 to 10? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Thank you for watching until the end.